Oh, thank you. And happy International Women's Day to all of us, each for equal. And I'm happy to be here this afternoon, even though I ended up at another venue, but I had to be here. What do I say? What can I say? My name is Maria Lovell. I'm councillor for Cllr Ward. So if any people here from Cllr, I'm one of your councillors. Oh! Thank you. I'm a Labour councillor for Cllr. I've just, had a surgery as well this morning. So, if any of you want to speak to me, I'm happy to speak to you, after everything. But yeah, I'm the councillor and deputy mayor of Luton, and this has all happened in a day, getting into becoming a councillor. I'll just quickly say, where I've come from, just to encourage all of us, as women, that I was a carer till 2018. That's how my life's changed. I was a carer caring for my 92 mum passed away 2018, 92. And I gave up my career. I used to work in Parliament. I was working with ministers. I worked with Secretary of State. And I'm proud to say I had my job interview at number 10 Downing Street. And I remember the day that I went for my interview, because I used to work, I started off in Luton. I used to work at the job centre years ago, when we had the screens and, we were paid by gyros and, all of that. I don't know if any of you here can remember those days. Yes, yeah. But that's where I'm coming from. And it just happened, that I, how much time have I got? 2 minutes. Oh, all right, okay. So I really need to cut the story really short. Anyway, so I got the job, and then I had to look after mum, for 13 years, and gave up everything. And gave up everything. I was home 24/7 because I was a full-time carer. Didn't do anything. People here who know my story. Shanti, she's here. He's here. Yeah. So, and then the opportunity came to apply to become a councillor, and I nearly gave it up because I didn't think I would have the time between my caring responsibilities for my mum and going for that job, which is very demanding. So anyway, mum kept encouraging me, saying that, you never know, just put the application in. So I did. I nearly missed the deadline by 15 minutes. It was 5 p.m. was the deadline on a Friday, and I sent it 4:45. So that was how anxious I was. So yes, I know about anxiety because I've had all of that. And so it went through, and then, a few weeks later, I wasn't expecting anything. I didn't even want to expect anything because I didn't know how I was going to be a councillor and look after mum. Anyway, I got shortlisted, and I went for the panel interview, and I still didn't even think I was going to get it because of my race. And these are things that, we see every day as a black woman, as a black African woman, I should say, that we encounter every day. These are one of the challenges that we face. So I got through all of that, but I still didn't even think I was going to get anywhere with it because of the color of my skin. Anyway, I got through. I got the interview. It was shocking. And then the elections came and did all that I needed to do. And then I got through as councillor. And it was a momentous evening. I remember, that when my name was called, I went through all the anxiety, the panic, and everything. That what have I put myself for? And I got called, and I got the highest vote in Cllr. Yes, and I remember coming out, and my mum passed away in between all of that, and. So I knew what she meant when she said send in the form, because you never, ever know. She knew that she had her journey, and she wanted me to continue my journey, because, I've given up everything, looking after her. So, that was what she was trying to say to me, but I didn't get it then. Anyway, so I came out. I remember, I said, my mum would have been the first person to call and to say, that Mum, I got through, but she wasn't there anymore. And I literally just ran out of Inspire Village up by Partridge, and the cemetery. My mum, that's. So I just ran out into the car park, and then just facing the cemetery, and I just said, Mom, I got through. I did it. I did it, and I'm sure that she heard me. So, this has been my journey, and I went to my first council meeting. I didn't even know what was going on because I didn't understand all this political talk and everything. It was all just going over my head. And then I just heard my name, and I just heard somebody say, that I seconded it, and the next thing I knew, I'd been selected as a deputy mayor of Luton. So this is where I am, and humbly, I stand here as humble, because God has brought me here, and I tell my story because I've got nothing to hide. This is what it is, this is where I am, and I thought I'd lost it all, looking after my mum. And it's just to encourage, anybody who cares for anybody, or any time that you give doing something out of love, that there can be a reward. And I believe that some people can understand, some people don't want to accept it. That I am where I am, but I am where I am because God has put me here, and it's my destiny and it's my story. So, just to inspire all of you, the people can, there is everybody that's going to accept you, not going to be happy for you. But, I've come here, I'm not talking it, I have walked it, I have lived it. So when I say anything, I know what it is to be homeless, I know what it is not to have money, I know what it is to have anxiety or panic attacks. So, I'm not just talking, I have walked it and I have done it, and I am here, and I'm proud, and I'm a woman. So.
Okay, hear me? Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I'm the owner-director of Home Instead Senior Care. That's a care company that I've set up covering Luton and Central Bedfordshire. And why did I do that? I did it because my mum had dementia. And I would like to acknowledge Kerry at the back, whose mum absolutely was a wonderful person and a wonderful neighbour, and that's what has brought me to work very closely and to agree, when invited by Luton Borough Council, to agree to become the chair of Luton Dementia Action Alliance, which I'll tell you about, because it's all about neighbourhood and it's all about community and making Luton a better society for people living with dementia. I'm also a Dementia Friends champion, and what that means is I've been through a training process by Dementia UK that enables me to give short information sessions, and I'll tell you how you could become either a Dementia Friend and get one of these little badges, or you could also become a Dementia Friends champion. So my talk today is really, I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to cover. So a little bit about what is dementia. I'm not going to go into the clinical side. I am a nurse, but I'm not going to go into that today because I think you would need a much longer time. The scale of the challenge as we know it, responding to those challenges, 5 key messages I'd like you to leave with about dementia, a little bit about the dementia-friendly community, and then finally, ignore the second 5 key messages, a little bit about making a difference and how I'll give you an example of one of the initiatives I work with that's about turning understanding into action. So what is dementia? Well, there's many definitions of dementia, but this is the one I like to use when I'm working with anybody. It's a name for a set of symptoms that includes memory loss and difficulties with thinking, problem solving or language. Dementia develops when the brain is attacked by disease and damaged by disease. And Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. It's the most common type, but it's one type. So the important thing, because dementia still has a stigma around it, is to get that message over that it's caused by a physical disease destroying the constitution of the brain, and it is not something that is, it affects personality, but it's not something somebody is doing deliberately. And I think that's a really important thing to get across. There's many types of dementia. There's about 40 that are regularly diagnosed, and more commonly there's about 6 to 8 of those. The symptoms that someone may exhibit can be different, all depending on which part of the brain is being affected at any one time. So it might start with memory loss, and often Alzheimer's is the one that does start with memory loss. But if somebody has cardiovascular disease, they may exhibit slightly different changes. And so the most important thing is to get the diagnosis, what we call a differential diagnosis, to make sure that the diagnosis is confirmed. And the way you do that is initially by taking the person or the person themselves going to a GP, and then there's a series of tests that need to be done. The only way that dementia can be fully confirmed is at autopsy after death. So scans can give you an idea. They're not always conclusive, and that is sometimes why it takes a long time to actually get the differential diagnosis. And you will hear of people going to their GP several times because their symptoms are not totally symptomatic. You will always have an assessment, and it involves questions about, can you tell me the day of the week, where you are, where you live, things like that. You might have some diagrams to draw, and again, somebody with dementia may draw those in a certain way that gives the clinician some more conclusive evidence. So it can take a while, but it's really important that other forms of disease that may affect the brain are excluded before a dementia diagnosis is made. What I would say about Luton is we have a fantastic memory service at which the clinicians are very good at confirming the diagnosis, and we have above average diagnosis rates, not because there's more dementia in Luton, but because we've got an effective diagnostic system. So we are lucky in that respect. So just to look at this in terms of what the brain looks like. So I don't know if you can see at the back, but Alzheimer's disease accounts for 62% of all dementias that are diagnosed. Alzheimer's disease is one of the better ones, I suppose, if you want to put it like that, in that there is some medication that can help delay the further onset of problems. So that is the one that you hear about the most. As I said, it's the most commonest type, and it's the one in which there is a type of treatment. There is no cure for dementia. So I need to make that clear. There is no cure for dementia at the moment. And your fundraising efforts for Alzheimer's, etc., a lot of work is being done in research, and it does need people to fundraise for it. The second most common type is vascular dementia, and again, that's more problematic in certain, certain populations. Any of those populations who would have an underlying problem with cardiovascular disease may also be more have a more of a tendency towards vascular dementia. So, for example, my mother had suffered with angina for most of her life. She had high blood pressure, poor cardiac output, and so her disease was very much vascular disease. And there is a more unsteady pattern of change in vascular dementia. With Alzheimer's, you see a gradual decline in functioning of the brain. With vascular dementia, it's a bit erratic. So sometimes you would actually think she was better and she'd got over it, and then she would deteriorate quite quickly. The next one is mixed dementia, where they may have two or more types of dementia. And then the rarer causes, the one where they call it frontal temporal dementia is the one quite often seen more in younger people, So that's somebody in their 60s or younger. That is what we call young onset dementia, and it's often their communication skills that go the first. So they think they're speaking correctly and making sensible sentences, but you wouldn't understand what they're saying. And that is the most frustrating thing for somebody actually, and they have intermittent periods of lucidity as well. Currently, the last statistics we've had is that there are 850,000 people living in the UK with dementia. Interestingly, a new statistic that came out at the end of last year, now I have a care company now for about 9 years. Obviously I'd had personal experience of dementia, and I've nursed dementia since I was a staff nurse many years ago when I trained at the L&D. But interestingly, 52% of the public now say they know somebody living with dementia. When I started my care company, that figure was about 15%. So in the space of 8 years, there has been a change in the amount of diagnosed dementia and the awareness of its existence. The current cost of dementia in the UK to the economy overall is in the average, they think, around about 26 billion. That takes account of hospital care services and the impact of carers having to give up their job, a bit like our Deputy Mayor spoke about earlier. It's where families' economy has been, their whole economic world has changed because they've had to give up and have care and responsibilities. And that's why I alluded to Kerry's mum right at the beginning. I worked as a director at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and during that time my mum was in the early stages of dementia. The impact on my work was considerable, but if I hadn't had family and friends and neighbours to support me, I would have had to give up work early. I did leave the NHS because of my mum's care needs, and then I found a way of starting a company so that I could work around that. Unfortunately, even though I'm a nurse and I've had care responsibilities, I too had to recognise I couldn't do it all on my own, and I had to take advice when it was given by the consultant, and my mother had to end up in residential care, which was not what my desired outcome would be. But it does have an impact, and I think the more we know about this disease, the better it is. Dementia's higher cost in terms of health and social care than cancer and chronic heart disease combined, and it's because you need layers and layers of support to enable you to keep somebody living safely in the community, because quite often they forget where they live, they forget how to live safely in their own homes, they forget to eat or drink, and so healthcare problems occur. And there is a projected increase of individuals living in the UK. So by 2051, we expect to see that we will have more than the whole population of Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham combined in numbers of people living with dementia in this country. It's a slow burn, but we can see the numbers rising. So 2025 is not that far away, and we expect to see over 1 million people living with this disease at any one time. So what are the challenges we face? They are about continually improving treatment and care. It's about staff having specialist training to enable them to look after people with dementia well. Certainly in my nurse training, I never had any training about dementia, and we know that needs to be corrected. So the L&D is one of our local partners in the Dementia Alliance, and is doing a lot to include all staff having training. Dementia prevention still falls behind other health issues, but what we say is if you get it right for your heart, you get it right for your head. So all those health messages that work about preventing coronary heart disease work for dementia. The important area of support for family and carers, and maybe that's something that you all want to think about. How can you formally support people and make sure that they don't become socially isolated? And as I said, research and development to interventions and turning those interventions into regular use in treatment. There are some new initiatives. I'd like to introduce you to Ruby. This is our dementia-friendly dog that we have in our company. She goes out to clients. She comes to our dementia cafe. There is an actual dementia dog project in Scotland about adopting a dog and having that dog live with you when you've got dementia. Music, we know, is a fantastic medium for helping people with dementia, particularly at times when they're disturbed. Cycling without age, and I'm going to show you another picture of us taking this Danish project, which is about older people being given the opportunity to go out on cycles. We've done it here in Luton. And this new project, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, David Cameron launched it this week. It's about early detection of dementia through using smart watches, about collecting data, because we believe dementia starts about 20 years before it becomes obvious. 5 key messages, just to let you know, it's not a natural part of ageing, although we see it in older people. But just because you're getting older doesn't mean you'll get dementia. It is caused by diseases of the brain. It's not just about losing your memory. There are other elements that will be affected by it. It is possible to live well with dementia in a good, friendly society, and there's more than dementia about the person. Always remember that. So, just very quickly, I'm conscious of your time. Dementia Friends is an Alzheimer's Society initiative. It's a national social action movement. It's about aiming to increase understanding of dementia within the local community. Luton has been recognised by Dementia UK for the work it's done as a dementia-friendly community, and the Dementia Action Alliance is the vehicle to help that happen. We have about 80 organisations. I won't go through all of this, but it's about every part of life becoming more dementia-friendly. So transport, schools, hospitals, businesses, all understanding dementia and making sure their organisation is more tolerant and supports people. So just to give you a local flavour of what we do, Home Instead, my company, works around making a difference. And one of the things we've done is we've set up a weekly cafe in St John's Parish Centre, just nearby. We have about 110 individuals come every week. We provide them, it was established in 2016, and we provide them with music, and activities so that they can, with their family members, they can come and have a normal social afternoon.
Sorry.
Okay. One of the... really quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Purely because of time, guys.
Okay. One of the things... Can you hear me with this? Yeah. One of the things that we've also done is we try and give them different experiences. So this is the Cycling Without Age experience. We hired rickshaws from Covent Garden and we took our guests out round Wardown Park 2 years ago. We're going to repeat it this year as well. So it gives them an opportunity to experience cycling without them having to do it. The cafe also provides a comfortable place for family members to come and meet. It's open to anybody. We don't have set criteria. And it also enables those who have been bereaved through dementia to come back, and many have come back and volunteer. And we also have additional NHS services on site. One of the things we've done is we've formed a choir, so it's again about giving them a different experience. And this is the last one.
Right.
Okay, and we took them to Luton Airport to sing last year. So just very quickly, if you'd like to consider becoming a dementia friend and learning more about dementia, you can do so. My details are there, and I've left some information on the Alzheimer's stand. And if you as an organisation, wherever you work or just as a community group, would like to become part of the Dementia Alliance, then we'd be delighted to welcome you on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Okay, right. I've obviously got into dementia and Alzheimer's because of my mother. My mother was diagnosed in 2007. No, sorry, my mum was diagnosed on the 18th of March 2008. And she passed on the 23rd of March 2016, which is obviously 8 years from diagnosis. But obviously with dementia, it's years before that. The diagnosis, it just confirms why you thought that, why they're doing strange things. It's so you're literally moving from that point of the diagnosis. These are the things that I think that I always share with people that tell me that they know someone that's got a dementia. And my first thing is to contact social services. Okay, I know funds are low, but they are still there to help. My mum used to go to a day centre, so that helped to break up her day. It also gave us the relief because in 2009, my son, who was 5 at the time, we ended up living with her. So what happened was that we then got the day centre, she was going there, and then we would have carers, some coming in the morning, but to get her ready. But as time progressed, we then needed someone for the evening. You'll also find that they are also good in giving you respite. Everyone that has a carer, has a patient at home, is entitled to get at least 4 hours respite a week. So, and you'll be quite surprised that in those 4 hours doesn't seem much, but in 4 hours, if you can go and lie in your bed and not think of anything and not do anything, it is a great relief. You just sort of like if somebody's downstairs sitting with them and you know they're safe, and it just gives you that time for yourself or time to spend like with my son, etc. They also, and I think it's a good thing, is because they also give you the avenue to get adult underpants. Once you get further down the dementia route, you will need them. And they are more hardy than the ones that you will buy in any Sainsbury's or Tesco's. And the social services take in that cost rather than it coming from you. Another thing that we did was that I was fortunate because I was on my mum's mortgage and always she paid for it. The house was paid for. And then when I moved in, I got my name put on her bank account. Now, these are things that, if you haven't done, these are things you need to consider, because once you go, you need to do all of these things before you go and get whoever it is tested. Because once you get them tested and it comes back and it's confirmed the dementia, they are suffering from dementia, they are then not of sound mind and cannot make decisions. So you have to make sure that you get all of those things sorted before you go down that avenue. It makes, I tell you, it makes life so much easier, because you can go into the bank, you can pay this, you can do that, and you don't have to worry about anything. When my mum passed, because the house automatically reverted to myself, and I just shared the proceeds with my siblings. If we hadn't had that, we'd have had to go through probate and everything else, which, when someone passes, it's bad enough as it is. You don't need to worry about all of those things as well. I'm going to try to talk fast. There's two areas, I think, as well, when you've got someone who comes to dementia. My mum was quite popular when she was of sound mind. When you get dementia and you go down the line, the visits from friends and family diminish, okay? And you have to bear with them, because we go through it and we live it, we understand it. They don't. So when they see someone that they've been with or worked with for 20 years and they see them doing things that they think, why are they, it hurts them as much as it hurts us. So to combat their pain, they just take themselves out of the situation, and that's why you don't get as many visits, you don't get people, but you also have to understand why they do it as well. And another thing is also always include the children, the grandchildren. They go through it just as much as we do. As I said, we moved in with my mum when my son was 5, so instantly he became like a carer. He was like, "Oh, Tyler's run upstairs and get mum's medication for me." And he would go, "Nana, do you want a cup of tea?" And he would do all those things, and sometimes she wouldn't even come upstairs with us. We'd fight, and then he'd go grab her hand. And dementia patients relate to children because they also go back in their head as to children. And he would be able to take her upstairs, and she would be guided with him. And if I ever tried to tell him off, oh my, she may not have said something, she may have got to that stage where she don't say something, but her actions, she would just sort of like look at me and then just sort of like go to grab him as if to say like she's saving him. Sometimes he did need saving. I hate to say. But anyway, I did ask my son as well. Once I said to him I was going to come here and do this, I said to him, what is the one thing that you would say about dementia that you would like people to know? And he said, always keep talking to a person with dementia. And it's one of the points that I had, and it's sort of like, even though they're there, they get this blank look, even though they're there, talk to them. My mum used to come in and like, "How was your day, mum?" And she'd sit there and it'd be like, nothing. She wouldn't come back, and I'd say, "Oh, so what did you have for lunch?" And it's just, and then she would, "Oh, you didn't like it? Why, what was bad about it?" And it's just that conversation. She might not be answering, but you're talking to her. I feel that they feel that you are still corresponding with them. If you, at the early stages, if you turn around and keep saying to a dementia patient, you've already asked me that, you've already asked me that, they will stop talking. And you don't want them to stop talking, because as soon as they stop talking and continue to stop talking, they will stop communicating, full stop. Talking is the thing that you need to do to keep them going. Always include them. It doesn't matter. Have a conversation with yourself. Ask about where they've, what happened back home. I know with my mum that we were sitting there, just two last things. We were sitting there and I would be going, we was all sitting there one day and I was going, "Mum," and she was just looking straight forward at the television. I'm going, "Mum." I'm going, Mum, and she wouldn't look left, right, anywhere except for the telly. And then I went, "Chicken," she went, like that. But to me, that was the sign she'd forgotten she was a mum. She could only relate to the fact that she was now called Chick. So then from that moment on, then we started calling her Chick, and we would get responses from her. And the last thing is that, as I said with my son, it was just a case of him being part of it. The one thing that always fills me with joy is when we go to see her at the graveside, as often, especially this summer, as soon as we pull up, my son goes in the back of the car, gets all the stuff to clean her headstone and everything else. But we have this rule that we'll always have our own moments with her. Now, my son doesn't remember my mum when she was of sound mind. He only remembers her with dementia. So I just love is just that when he has his time, he will sit on the middle of her grave like he's sitting on her lap, and he will sit there and he'll talk to her. And to me, it's sort of like, it's like he's still got that unconditional love for her. And that's the thing about it, is you talk to them, try and get as much information as you can out of them, because what happens is, I never asked my mum a lot of things that I should have asked. So that part, some of that part of her history is gone. Okay, but the harsh reality is, like Maria says, dementia. If you've got dementia, your prognosis is death. That's all it is, and all you have to do with your patient is just make their journey to the other side as enjoyable. I can't say enjoyable, but as positive for both of you, and that's my journey. Thank you very much.